All right, so I just finished booking my transportation and my Airbnb. As I mentioned before, I will put the links in the description once I've finished my trip and have basically be able to give you a tour. So my name is Cara. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I talk about building the soft life abroad, and that means in specific places in the world that offer a softer life. And if you're coming back to my channel, I'm so happy to have you here. I've seen so many Americans, so many people talking about moving specifically abroad, but also specifically to Albania. And if you see my previous videos, I'm moving from Turkey to Albania. So I'm actually building my portfolio. And I live right now in Izmir, Turkey. I love it so much. I've actually lived in Turkey since 2020. I absolutely adore this culture, this country, and it has been such a blessing for me to be able to live here and reside here. Also, simply recognizing this part of the world is very old world. That's something I talk about a lot, is having that, the aesthetic. A lot of Americans, when they travel to Europe, especially for the first time, and typically to a Western European country or countries, they immediately fall in love with the charm, the old world, the aesthetic. And it's not that we don't have any aesthetics back in America, but we just don't have, of course, we have a lot of, yes, modern cities, but we just, when they're built there, they don't have that charm, the aesthetics. So building a life abroad it's not as, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but I've moved from state to state in America. I grew up in a family where we did move a handful of times. So when I became an adult and I moved out and moved to a new state for the first time, it wasn't completely new to me. And then I ended up moving to quite a few states by myself around the United States. And then eventually I moved abroad. This is something I've talked about on other videos, and eventually I'll break down each country that I've lived in, but that's not the topic of this video. So grab a cup of tea. Earl Grey is my preference. And today what I'm going to talk about is how the logistics of how do I even pick the country, and then how do I find my Airbnb, and then how do I figure out how to get there, transportation. So that's really the focus of today's video. All right, so one of the first gauges for me to find the next country or the next city, let's say, because I could pick Turkey, for example, before I came here, but what I was really picking was Istanbul, let's be honest. I wasn't looking in Eastern Turkey, Southern Turkey, Northern Turkey, Central Turkey. I was looking at specifically Istanbul. So if you have, again, if you're building a soft life abroad and you're thinking about moving abroad long-term, being there longer, and I usually suggest 3 to 5 years, and that way you're getting your toes in, you're getting adjusted, you're figuring out if this is really for you, but also in the meantime, you can do a lot of wonderful things for yourself and for your family in that time, regardless whether you go back to your home country or stay abroad. So I look at then the city, and actually Airbnb, not hosted, not sponsored, is a huge resource, and it has been for me since, I would say, at least 2015 or 2014, I think is when I started using Airbnb, and it really is a good way to get an idea of a place and at least what the local fees are going to be. Now, obviously on Airbnb, it's going to be more because, you know, most likely somebody's making that into their business, whether they have just one home that they're renting on Airbnb, whether it's a room, or whether they actually have a full business and they have multiple properties that they offer on Airbnb. I like to specifically use the availability calendar and also the map on each particular listing. So the first thing that I do, and I'm not screen sharing, you're just gonna have to go on the app and look at this. Sorry, I don't edit my videos. That's just like, it's raw, it's a one take, so you'll just have to bear with me or roll with it. Or find something else that works if this doesn't work for you, this formatting. So I go ahead and I pull up the city, and then I pull up, I don't put any filters in first. That's a really big key, is because it's gonna give you the broadest. Then there's a slider where you can look at the pricing and you can slide it up and down. Again, I try not to use any of the filters, the sliders, or anything. I just wanna open it up, look at the city, and then actually from there, I wanna find out what area I wanna be in. So I usually then also use YouTube as a resource to help me identify different things in that particular city. So for example, my move to Albania is not by any stretch of the imagination I just thought of this a couple weeks ago. I've been researching Albania for a year and a half. Now, living in Turkey, I'm not exactly that far away. It's not like I couldn't have made a flight or a drive and a scout trip yet. But as I talk about on this channel about soft life countries that make that list, Albania was just on the list for me to explore in my soft life journey. And like I said, expanding my portfolio abroad. So then between using what I can see that expats are talking about in that particular city, I usually try to find things that are filmed within the last 6 months. And I also try to look at things that are filmed during tourist season and off tourist season. That's really key. So for me right now, we're going to Saranda, we as in my dog and I. And I wanted to see both what was it like during the winter, the quieter months, right, where it's not as touristy. And then I wanted to explore, well, what's it get like when it's super busy and super touristy during the summer months. You might reverse that if you're going to a winter destination like Bansko or something, right? I don't know. So that's another way then that I research the city and also the area, because when I'm looking at an area, walkability is right up there on my tippy top of important things for me. Now you might be like, oh, I'm gonna rent a car, I'm gonna buy a car, or I'm gonna bring my car. Great, that's fine. I am gonna say right off the bat, that's not the soft life. So this might not be the channel for you. But if you're like, yeah, I don't wanna have to have a car, or I just want to do what you do, Cara, which is when I want a car, I just rent one. There you go. I just rent an SUV, but I love public transportation, so I take that as often as possible. So speaking of public transportation and walkability, narrowing down what's the area that I want to live in. The other things I will then, my third tool, all right, so now I'm using Airbnb, I'm using YouTube, and I'm looking at on and off seasons. I'm looking at ideally the last 6 months, give or take what the season is, of course. I don't mind looking at videos a year old, but I don't look at videos 2 years old. I don't look at videos 4 years old, because I just know that so much has changed with COVID and with traveling and expats and digital nomads. So I just know that some of that information just might simply be outdated if I'm looking at that video specifically to do research about going to a new country. Now, if I just want to see something pretty or know about their history, yeah, I'll watch a video that's 2 years old or 4 years old or 15 years old. So I'm talking specifically about doing the research about going to move to a city. I don't watch the older videos. Okay, so then my third tool is Google Maps, right? So I will, the map feature, when I find a listing on Airbnb, and I do save them, and I do make like little playlists, if you will, or like little lists about the different cities that I want to go to or the different countries. I'll save those with the little heart feature, and I'll make that list, and then I'll have some different flats, apartments to look at, and I can look at their map. And then I take that map and I match that map to Google Maps. So let's say I zoom in and I find a cafe, for example, because I'm such a cafe person. So cafes and walkability are big anchors for me to find my apartment and my neighborhood. Spoiler alert, I know that doesn't sound really highly technical, does it? But I've lived abroad and I've moved enough to know that that's what's important. I want to be able to walk outside my flat and be able to go to multiple cafes within 5 minutes. I'm not the girl. I didn't move abroad so that I can get on a train and take a train or get in a car or walk 20 minutes to, no, that's not the walkability lifestyle. So again, this is soft life. Things are with ease, things are gentle, things are calmer for your nervous system. Things help you, these are things to think about to building that lifestyle of a softer life. Again, my audience is female. Whether you are single, you are married, you're a mommy of a family and you're moving abroad, whether you're a grandma, whether you're retired, you're a professional, whether you're just a cool aunt with no kiddos, every woman, that's who I'm talking about, 30 to 65 plus, about building a softer life. And caveat, if you don't already know this about this channel, I really focus on lifestyle. Spoiler alert again, right? So I focus on what I did, which is healing my nervous system. You know, being able to get my anxiety and panic attacks and depression under control that had really taken over my life when I was still living in America. I mean, it was really at one point, it was very paralyzing, and it stopped me from just even being able to fully live and just participate in normal things. When my anxiety and panic attacks got that bad. Actually, there was a time in there, this is another video, where I even had like agoraphobia for about 6 months, and I couldn't even leave my home. It was wild. So recognizing that I have to take care, it's my responsibility, right? I have to take care of my nervous system, and that includes sleep, that includes what am I eating, what am I not eating, my general lifestyle. And so healing your nervous system when you move abroad, for me, in these softer places, slower places, more traditional traditions and old world charm vibes have just been very nourishing to me. I'm sure if you're a girly like me, you're on either Instagram, YouTube, or even maybe Pinterest, or my new favorite, Substack. And you're seeing all these, like, you know, how do I bake, you know, bread and make my own butter, and, you know, just these very aesthetic type, soft, images that are, it just even looking at them can calm your nervous system. But that world really exists. You can really build that, and I've found outside of the United States. This isn't a bash on my home country. I'm just sharing my experience with you. And every time I go back to the United States, it's just not a soft life. Okay, so as I was talking about tools, so then I find cafes. So then from there, I have identified some cafes on my Google Maps. I'll even screenshot and save those for reference. I've found the apartments, and because of the maps and the availability, I need to see that their availability calendar is open, right? If you're looking at spots where there's a lot of bookings and it's going to be really tight, I don't encourage that, because you might find that it's going to stress you out if you get a booking, but then you want to stay longer and they have too many bookings coming up and you're going to have to move. So if you can look for a booking, obviously this has to do with seasonal too. If it's a high season, it's going to be a little more challenging to find something that has a lot of open bookings. If it's, you know, a pretty decent place that you want to stay. So, you know, that's just something to consider, is look at their availability calendar first, and then also the area. All right, so now you've got your images, you're saved, like let's say cafes. Maybe you're also someone who, like me, I love the spa. I love to be able to go and use hydrotherapy. That's very common in this part of the world, where you're using hot and cold therapy. I'm not talking about cold plunge and being some sort of like hardcore. I'm talking about the basic biology of getting warmer, and then your body cools down, and then your body gets warmer, and then your body cools down. Okay, I'm not talking about anything radical here. This is ancient wisdom. Korea, the Scandinavias, Russia. I mean, there are so many parts of the world, Turkey, that have used hydrotherapy, hammams, massage, sauna. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So I love to have access to spas or hammams. So that's something I'll look up. Gyms, another thing to look up. Again, you're looking for an area of where to find an Airbnb or potentially live. If you're just looking at the whole world and then you narrow it down to a country and then you narrow it down to a city, but now you have to narrow it down to an area, right? A neighborhood. And maybe you're watching some YouTube videos, but you're still not really sure, well, what area, because they're not giving out their actual location unless they say this cafe or this restaurant or this gym or this park, right? So that's just what I do, and then I narrow it down. So I found a really adorable Airbnb. I only booked it for 5 days because my intention is once we hit the ground and I've arrived, that I will already have some appointments set up with some real estate people, and ideally then they already kind of have an idea of, hey buddy, an idea of what kind of flat I'm looking for to rent, and have maybe a couple of those appointments even set up so that we can do that right away. There's Barnabas. Hey bud. He's got his jammies still on. Yes, my dog wears jammies. And when I looked at her availability in her calendar, I could see that there was openings. So that was another thing. If I had booked earlier, she had a little block of just a few days that were booked. Once I narrowed it down to this particular Airbnb. And, but then I was like, oh, if I go earlier and then I have that little wiggle room, and let's say I'm still seeing flats 5 nights in, and I say, hey, can I stay a couple extra nights? No big deal, right? I don't have to move to a new place. Well, I would have had to have done that with her booking, and that's why I booked it after that couple days that she has booked, and the calendar is wide open for like at least a month. So I don't want to live there for a month in this particular move. I really want to go ahead and just hit the ground, find a great flat, and then move into my flat. I'll talk about actually renting month to month, because that's a whole nother video. Actually, that's a really good idea, is how I usually book a month at a time. Okay, so but before I made the Airbnb reservation, this is my pro tip. All right, ready? I messaged the host. I know, shocker. Yeah. So when you go to book, you can just instant book. A lot of places have instant book, and even when you go to message the host, it'll say like, "Hey, this is all the information. Are you sure you still want to message the host?" And I get it. A lot of people might just be like, "I don't need to message the host. I can read the reviews. I can read about the place. It's fine. I can just book it. Like, I don't want to deal with the host." That's one way to approach it. For me and the soft life, I message the host and I ask a couple questions, not to be like annoying and ask them 500 questions, but to actually, it's a test. It's a test. I'm simply seeing if they're willing to, what kind of response they're going to give me. Right? I'm going to ask them, say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to come in, and these are a couple questions. And I'm just very warm and friendly. Now, if I get a response back that's like, yes, you can book, it's available. That to me is a sign that person, I can already get a sense of how it's going to be to rent from that person. Remember, there are hosts. They are the people who are going to, I'm not trying to put more responsibility on them that is necessary, but they're the person that's going to be kind of like our first taste in that apartment, in that city, in that area, who knows, right? So when you're a host, I mean, you have so much opportunity to really wow your guests and make such an incredible impression. So I encourage anyone who has Airbnb is, if that's the kind of service you want to offer. Some people are like, I got too many properties. I'm not gonna message you like book or don't book, like whatever. That's fine. For me, I just message and I see their response, and if this person was what I usually am looking for, which is she responded with a really nice response, and then I asked something else, and then she responded, and I asked something else, and she responded, and that was it. It was just a light conversation to get a sense, and then she even extended, hey, if you have other questions, or if you need help booking an agent or didn't, she was like, hey, I'm here. I'm like, that's the soft life. You tracking with me? Okay, that's the soft life. That is, it's not about easy. It's simply about kind of like looking at the situation and trying to put yourself in a calm nervous system type of environment. So that's one of my pro tips. And then I didn't book with her. I kept her abreast. Here was another thing. As I was negotiating and going back and forth and finding my transportation, which did take the longest because of traveling with my doggy, I needed to confirm and actually lock and load my transportation. I had to find it and then confirm everything and pay for it, pay my deposit before I booked my Airbnb. Because what I don't want to do then is have to go back and forth and try to adjust that reservation. But what I did is I'm a good communicator. So I communicated with her. I said, hey, it's not like she's going to hold the apartment. That's not what this is about. Like if she can book, she needs to book. And I would always go back in, look at her availability, see if the dates I still wanted were open. And then I would message her and say, hey, I'm just letting you know I'm still, doing this, or I'm still researching this, or I haven't confirmed this. But these are still the dates. So, thanks for, I'm just keeping you abreast, or thanks for your patience or something. So, so then I finally finalized everything with my transportation, paid my deposit, went back into my calendar, booked the date that I know that my transportation is going to bring me to Saranda to be able to check in. I made sure that date was open and that, again, the calendar was still open before I booked. Boom, then I booked for the 5 days and poof, now I have a home and I have my transportation with my stuff, with my doggy, to my new location. And so the next step is to start finding different agents and that kind of thing, where I can have a few appointments set up, or at least have some contact on the ground. I will put links in the description once I find those people and once I find those different contacts to be resources for you as well. And again, I'm not going to put anything that I don't think is going to be helpful for you. If I've come across something that's not helpful, then I'm not going to bother. And I'm not interested in also, if I don't have a good situation or good service with someone, I'm not here to like bash somebody's service. I want this to be this channel and this information to be helpful for you. So I'll only share something that is really helpful for me, that could be for you as well. So all right, so we're locked and loaded. So I've got my transportation, I've got my Airbnb. Next step is to also remember, this is about being flexible. The soft life is about being an adaptable, flexible person. I don't need to know that I have an apartment to look at before I arrive, okay? For me, I'm also very much a hands-on person. So once I get there, I might have 2 real estate agents I'm meeting with. They might already have 6 flats and apartments that I'm gonna look at, but I might be getting my coffee and I might meet somebody and have a great conversation. They're like, oh, my aunt has an apartment, she's renting out. That happens, you know what I mean? That happens, like on the ground, and like somebody, it just occurs. And I believe in, I am someone who believes in the God of the Bible. And so I believe in the sense that there is God protecting me, God watching over me, and God also wanting me to, have, be safe. So without getting too much into this topic. So I'm going to then also be very open to that possibility. I could be going to a gym or a cafe, or just getting some food at a market, and I could meet someone who, in English, obviously, and they're like, oh, did you realize the flat rate here is available, and I can connect you with the person? And so that's what I'm saying about being flexible and adaptable. Like, I don't need to know I have an apartment to rent and look at as soon as I hit the ground. I might not find a great real estate agent. They might not find the places that I'm hoping to rent. So I want to do my due diligence and do a little bit of both. So I'm going to do some research, but I'm also going to very much stay open to some possibilities. So that's it for this video. I hope you found this helpful. Remembering the apps, again, I don't think I need to put those in the links, but the things that I use to help me narrow down, again, the place. And I'll do a different video on really how I found my transportation, and because this video is already 25 minutes long. So I will close it up, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope this was helpful. Feel free to leave comments if you have any questions about my process. And I just want to encourage you with this channel and this content to move abroad. Just do it. Just do it. What are you waiting for? Just do it. All right, bye for now.